For thousands of years, the Middle East has been this incredible focal point of faith, conflict, and prophecy. From ancient scrolls to our news headlines today, the stories from these lands have literally shaped the world. So today, we're going to dig into a question that ties all of that together. With everything going on in the world right now, it's a question a lot of people are asking. Do these ancient texts actually hold any clues about what's happening today? Well, in this explainer, we're going to look directly at the key passages in the Bible to see what's really there. Okay, so before we jump into any specific prophecies, we have to start here, with this perspective from the New Testament. This verse is so important because it reminds us that conflict, sadly, has always been part of the human story. The point here isn't to create alarm, but to kind of set the stage. Hearing about wars and tension isn't automatically a sign of one single event, but a theme that's repeated throughout history.
All right, so with that foundation in place, let's turn to one of the most discussed prophecies when it comes to this very topic. We're diving into the book of Ezekiel and his pretty incredible vision. Now, this is the critical connection we absolutely have to make right up front. When you read about Persia in the Bible, the prophets are talking about the empire that was located in the exact same region as modern-day Iran. And that direct geographical link is what pulls this ancient text right into our modern conversation.
So here it is, the core of the prophecy. In chapters 38 and 39, Ezekiel lays out this vision of a massive future attack on Israel, and he specifically names Persia as a key player in this invading coalition. It's a really dramatic and detailed account, and you can see why it grabs people's attention today.
So here's the thing. How do people actually interpret this vision? Well, there is no single answer. On one side, you have many who see this as a literal prophecy that hasn't happened yet, something that points to a future end-times battle. But on the other side, a totally different school of thought says, hang on, these events were either fulfilled ages ago in ancient history, or they were meant to be symbolic of spiritual battles, not physical ones. And serious scholars hold both of these views.
Okay, so let's move on to our next key text and see how it builds out a bigger picture. We're now jumping into the prophecies you find in the book of Daniel. Daniel's visions are, well, they're a different kind of prophecy. They're less about one single battle and more about the grand sweep of history. The theme that comes up again and again is that these powerful earthly kingdoms, they're going to rise and they're going to fall. They fight for power, their borders change, but all of it is happening inside a much bigger story. It's really a message about perspective.
Okay, so we've looked at these incredible visions of conflict, but it is absolutely essential that we balance that with another incredibly powerful message that's woven all through the Bible. And this one isn't a prediction, it's actually a command.
This simple, direct line from the Psalms gives us a totally different lens to look through. See, the Bible doesn't just ask people to be spectators, just watching history unfold and looking for signs of war. It actively calls them to be participants in seeking peace. And that completely shifts the focus from just trying to forecast battles to actively working towards reconciliation.
And really, that's the big takeaway. I mean, sure, the dramatic prophecies get a lot of the attention, but the central overarching themes of the scriptures are about finding faith when times are uncertain, holding on to hope for something better, and working toward reconciliation. The prophecies about conflict, they exist inside that much, much larger context.
So, given all these different texts and all these different interpretations, what's a helpful way to even approach biblical prophecy? Let's try to break down a clear framework that might help.
So let's look at 3 keys to think about. First, we have to remember that prophetic language is super symbolic and poetic. It's not a modern political newspaper. Second, as we've already seen, interpretations vary a lot. There's just no single agreed-upon script. And third, the main point of these passages was always to build faith and encourage people spiritually, not to give them a detailed roadmap for predicting future wars.
So let's just state the conclusion as clearly as possible. You are not going to find a verse in the Bible that names modern Iran and modern Israel in a conflict dated for 2026 or any other year for that matter. What it does offer is timeless wisdom about how human power works, why conflict seems to stick around, and the huge importance of faith and peace.
And ultimately, all of that wisdom brings us right back to this final question. Because whether we're reading an ancient text or just watching the news tonight, the challenge the Bible puts in front of every single generation is the same. In a world that feels so uncertain, where do we choose to find our hope? That's the timeless question at the very heart of it all.